At family dinner, my wife's pregnant sister declared, "You are irritating. You nauseate my baby. We want to live without you." My wife sat there, smiling and sipping her wine. I quietly stood up, packed my clothes, and left in the night. The next 2 days, when the bills went unpaid, 98 missed calls from my wife. You know that feeling when you're watching a movie and you can see the car crash coming from a mile away? Yeah, that was me walking into my in-laws' house that Tuesday evening in Tempe, clutching a bouquet of sunflowers like some kind of peace offering to the gods of family drama. If I'd known I was about to get body slammed by reality, I probably would have brought something stronger than flowers, like a lawyer or a therapist. Hell, maybe both. The Arizona heat was finally backing off as the sun started its descent behind the mountains, painting the sky that ridiculous orange-pink color that makes tourists lose their minds and locals check their watches. I'd driven over from our place. Well, what used to be our place, with my windows down, actually feeling pretty good about things. Maya had been less of a nightmare lately. Julia seemed to be in a decent mood, and I'd even managed to snag some of those fancy sunflowers from Whole Foods without breaking the bank. You know, the kind that cost more than a decent lunch, but somehow make you feel like you're winning at this whole thoughtful husband thing. Walking up the driveway, I could smell the rosemary chicken wafting through the screen door, mixing with that distinctive scent of red wine and whatever fancy candles my mother-in-law always had burning. The woman collected candles like some people collect vintage baseball cards, obsessively and with zero regard for storage space. Their house always smelled like a Bath and Body Works had a passionate affair with a Williams-Sonoma, and honestly, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. I knocked twice and let myself in. 5 years of marriage will earn you that kind of casual entry privilege, or so I thought. "Hey, I'm here," I called out, holding up the flowers like I'd just conquered a small country for them. Julia appeared from the kitchen, looking genuinely pleased to see both me and the sunflowers, which I took as a win. She was wearing that blue dress I'd complimented her on about 100 times, her hair done up in that messy but not really messy way that probably took her 45 minutes to perfect. "Those are beautiful," she said, taking the flowers and giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. Mom's in the kitchen having a minor meltdown about the potatoes, and Maya's been camped out on the couch since I got here, acting like she's directing traffic from her throne. And there she was, Maya, my sister-in-law, 8 months pregnant and wielding her condition like a medieval weapon. She was sprawled across their oversized sectional couch like some kind of expectant royalty, feet propped up on an ottoman, remote control in one hand and a glass of what I hoped was grape juice in the other. Her belly was impressively round at this point, and she'd been milking every ounce of sympathy from it for months. Don't get me wrong, pregnancy is tough, I get that. But Maya had turned it into a full-time performance art piece. "Oh good, the help is here," she said without looking up from whatever reality show was currently rotting her brain. "Can you grab me more crackers? And maybe see if there's any of that fancy cheese left? This baby is demanding luxury appetizers tonight." I bit back my first 3 responses, all of which would have started World War III, and headed to the kitchen instead. Julia's mom, Patricia, was indeed having what could generously be called a moment over a pot of mashed potatoes that looked perfectly fine to me. But then again, I'm the guy who thinks cereal counts as a balanced breakfast if you use the kind with dried fruit in it. "Oh honey, thank goodness you're here," Patricia said, looking genuinely relieved. "Can you help me get everything to the table? I feel like I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off." I jumped in, carrying dishes, refilling water glasses, making sure the wine was properly distributed among the adults who needed it most, which, let's be honest, was all of us. I even managed to keep up decent small talk about the weather, the neighbors' new landscaping, and how the Diamondbacks were having a surprisingly decent season. You know, the kind of safe, meaningless conversation that lubricates family gatherings and keeps everyone from talking about anything that actually matters. We all settled around the dining room table, Patricia at one end, Julia's dad at the other, Julia and I on one side, and Maya positioned at an angle that allowed her to keep her feet elevated because apparently sitting normally would have been too much to ask. The food was actually incredible. Patricia might stress about mashed potatoes, but the woman could cook. The rosemary chicken was perfectly seasoned, the vegetables weren't overcooked into mush, and the wine was flowing just enough to keep everyone relaxed. For about 20 minutes. It was actually nice. We talked about Patricia's book club, the new shopping center going up down the street, Julia's latest client at the salon who wanted highlights that would make her look like a young Gwyneth Paltrow. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Maya even participated in the conversation without making everything about her pregnancy symptoms or her various food aversions. I was starting to think maybe, just maybe, we could get through one family dinner without any drama. That's when I should have known I was screwed. The universe has a twisted sense of humor about these things. Maya had been pushing food around her plate for a few minutes, making these little disgusted faces like the perfectly good chicken had personally offended her and her unborn child. Then she looked up, made direct eye contact with me, and delivered the verbal equivalent of a knockout punch. "You're irritating," she said, her voice flat and matter-of-fact, like she was commenting on the weather. "You nauseate my baby. We want to live without you." The silence that followed was so complete you could have heard a pin drop in the next county. Patricia's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Julia's dad suddenly became very interested in his wine glass. And Julia, my wife, my partner, the person who'd promised to have my back through thick and thin, just sat there with this little smirk playing at the corners of her mouth, took a slow sip of her Pinot Grigio, and said absolutely nothing. Not a word. Not even a look in my direction. Nothing. I felt something shift inside me, like a gear clicking into place. This wasn't shock or hurt, or even anger. This was clarity. Pure, crystalline clarity about exactly where I stood in this family hierarchy, and it wasn't anywhere good. I didn't yell. I didn't throw my napkin down dramatically. I didn't demand an explanation or an apology. I just stood up, pushed my chair back quietly, and walked toward the guest room where I'd left my duffel bag from the gym. Behind me, I could hear Patricia trying to fill the silence with nervous chatter about dessert, but it sounded like it was coming from underwater. I grabbed my bag, walked back through the dining room where everyone was now studiously avoiding eye contact, and headed for the back door. The desert night air hit my face like a blessing. Cool, clean, and mercifully free of the toxic atmosphere I was leaving behind. As I walked to my car, I could hear Maya's voice through the open window, already moving on to complaining about the temperature in the house. Julia still hadn't said a word. You know what's funny about Rock Bottom? It's got surprisingly decent Wi-Fi these days. The Desert Palms Motel off I-10 wasn't exactly the Ritz-Carlton, but it had three things going for it. It was cheap, it was available, and most importantly, it was exactly 17 miles away from the dinner table from hell I'd just escaped. Sometimes distance is the best medicine, even if it comes with a side of questionable carpet stains and a vending machine that only accepts exact change. I'd pulled into the parking lot around 9:30, my hands still steady on the wheel despite feeling like my entire world had just gotten rearranged by a drunk tornado. The neon sign buzzed and flickered like it was having its own existential crisis, casting pink and blue shadows across the cracked asphalt. Vacancy, it proclaimed, which seemed appropriate since that's exactly how I felt inside. Vacant, hollowed out, like someone had scooped out my insides with a rusty spoon and forgot to mention it. The desk clerk was a kid who couldn't have been older than 22, probably working nights to pay for community college, and he had that look of someone who'd seen enough late-night check-ins to know not to ask questions. Smart kid. I slid him my credit card and watched him process the transaction with the kind of efficiency that suggested this wasn't his first rodeo with guys showing up alone after 9 p.m., carrying a single duffel bag and wearing the shell-shocked expression of someone whose life had just imploded. "Room 127, he said, handing me a key card that looked like it had been through a few wars. "Ice machine's at the end of the hall, but it's been making weird noises. Checkout's at 11, but if you need to stay longer, just let me know." Room 127 turned out to be a masterpiece of budget accommodation. 2 double beds with comforters that had probably seen more drama than a soap opera, a TV that was older than some of my coworkers, and a bathroom that was clean enough but made interesting sounds when you turn on the faucet. The carpet was that special shade of brown that's designed to hide stains and possibly small crimes. And the air conditioning unit under the window hummed with the determination of a machine that knew it was on borrowed time. But you know what? It was mine for the night. No one was going to tell me I was irritating. No one was going to smirk while I got verbally body slammed. And best of all, no one was going to sit there eating my money while telling me how nauseating I was. I dropped my duffel bag on the bed closest to the bathroom and just stood there for a minute, listening to the ceiling fan wobble its way through another rotation. The silence was incredible. No reality TV blaring from the living room. No complaints about the temperature or the lighting or how the Wi-Fi wasn't fast enough to stream whatever garbage Maya was binge-watching that week. No passive-aggressive comments about how I loaded the dishwasher or folded the laundry or breathed too loudly while trying to exist in my own damn house. I pulled out my phone, half expecting to see the screen lit up with missed calls and frantic texts. You know, the kind of concerned messages a loving wife might send when her husband disappears into the night after being publicly humiliated by her sister. Messages like, "Are you okay?" or "I'm sorry," or even just, "Where did you go?" The screen was black. Zero notifications. Absolutely nothing. Julia hadn't even tried to call. I sat down on the edge of the bed and really let that sink in. My wife of 5 years couldn't be bothered to check if I was alive, dead, or sleeping in a drainage ditch somewhere. But I bet you anything she'd notice when the mortgage payment didn't go through next week. That's when it hit me. Really hit me. Just how completely I'd been taken for granted. I started thinking back over the past 5 years, really adding it all up in my head like some kind of masochistic accountant. The rent on our place. Well, my place, since my name was the only one on the lease, was $1,800 a month. Then there was the internet bill, because apparently high-speed everything was essential for Maya's work-from-home lifestyle, which seemed to involve a lot of online shopping and video calls with friends. That was another $120 monthly. Groceries were a whole other nightmare. Maya had developed these incredibly specific dietary requirements that changed roughly every 2 weeks. First it was organic everything, then gluten-free, then keto. Now it was all about pregnancy superfoods that cost more per pound than good steak. Between her exotic taste and Julia's tendency to impulse buy fancy cheeses that would sit in the fridge until they grew science experiments, we were dropping at least $600 a month on food. And don't even get me started on Maya's car insurance. When her beat-up Honda finally gave up the ghost about 2 years ago, somehow it became my responsibility to add her to my policy and help her find something reliable but cute. The insurance alone was costing me an extra $180 monthly, and that was with her supposedly being a good driver, which was questionable at best given the number of parking tickets she'd accumulated. Then there were Julia's salon appointments. Look, I get it. Everyone deserves to feel good about themselves. But $250 every 6 weeks for highlights, plus the monthly mani-pedi sessions, plus whatever new skincare routine she'd discovered on Instagram that month. It added up faster than a Vegas gambling debt. The nursery remodel had been the real kicker. When Maya announced her pregnancy, suddenly our guest room needed to be completely transformed into what she called a wellness sanctuary for baby's arrival. New paint, new flooring, a crib that cost more than my first car, a rocking chair that was apparently ergonomically essential, and enough baby gadgets to stock a small store. The final bill had come to just over $4,800, and guess whose credit card got maxed out, making Maya's vision come to life? I pulled out my laptop, thank God for hotel Wi-Fi, even the sketchy kind, and logged into my bank account. There it all was, laid out in neat little monthly transactions like a digital paper trail of my own financial suicide. The automatic payments I'd set up to make everyone's life easier, to be the responsible one, to keep the peace and avoid the drama that came with late notices and disconnection threats. Rent, $1,800. Internet, $120. Car insurance, $320, mine and hers. Utilities, $180 average. Cell phone plan, $160 for 3 lines because Maya needed unlimited data. Streaming services, $47 because apparently we needed Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, and whatever other digital entertainment platforms were essential for Maya's daily survival. I sat there staring at the screen, adding it all up. Month after month, $2,500 on average disappeared from my account to keep their comfortable little world spinning. And for what? So Maya could call me irritating? So Julia could smirk and stay silent while I got humiliated? My cursor hovered over the first automatic payment, then the second, then the third. You know what they say about hitting rock bottom? It gives you a really solid foundation to build on. And sometimes, the first step in building something new is tearing down what's not working. I started clicking cancel. One by one, each automatic payment got the axe. The internet, the streaming services, the extra car insurance, even the premium grocery delivery service that Maya claimed was essential for her prenatal nutrition. By the time I was done, I'd freed up $2,480 in monthly automatic payments. Almost 30 grand a year that I'd been hemorrhaging to fund a life where I was apparently nothing more than a walking ATM with an irritating personality. I closed the laptop and lay back on the questionably clean bedspread, listening to the air conditioner wheeze through another cycle. Tomorrow, Julia would wake up and try to make coffee, only to discover the internet was down. Maya would attempt to stream her morning yoga routine and find herself staring at a blank screen. And for the first time in years, that wasn't going to be my problem to solve. Sleep at the Desert Palms Motel was about as elusive as an honest politician, which is to say I got maybe 3 hours of the restless, tossing and turning variety before giving up and staring at the ceiling like it held the secrets to the universe. The fan kept making this rhythmic clicking sound every fourth rotation, and the air conditioner had developed what could only be described as mechanical asthma, wheezing and gasping like it was fighting for its life. But honestly, even with all that noise, it was still more peaceful than the last few months at home. I checked my phone approximately 17 times during the night. Not that I was counting or anything, and the screen remained stubbornly dark. No missed calls. No text messages. No, hey, are you okay? Or can we talk? Or even a passive-aggressive, you forgot to take out the trash before you left. Nothing. Radio silence from the woman who'd promised to love, honor, and apparently ignore me when convenient. By 6 a.m., I was wide awake and staring at the water-stained ceiling tiles, my brain running laps around the same question. How the hell did I get here? Not just the motel room. That part was pretty obvious, but how did I end up being the family ATM for people who thought I was nauseating? When did I become so forgettable that my own wife couldn't be bothered to check if I was alive 12 hours after I disappeared? The thing that really got me was remembering how it all started. Maya hadn't always been the entitled, demanding princess currently squatting in my guest room like some kind of pregnant dictator. When I first met her, she was actually kind of sweet. Shy even. This was back when Julia and I were still in that honeymoon phase where everything was perfect and we spent weekends planning our future like we were mapping out a vacation to paradise. Maya had been this nervous 20-year-old college kid who was terrified of driving and couldn't pass her statistics class to save her life. Julia would drag her over to our apartment, our tiny, cramped, absolutely perfect first apartment, and Maya would sit cross-legged on our living room floor, surrounded by textbooks and chip crumbs, while I tried to explain the difference between correlation and causation for the 100th time. I just don't get it, she'd say, looking genuinely frustrated with herself. Numbers hate me. I think I'm allergic to math. And I'd laugh and grab another bag of Doritos from the kitchen, settling down on the floor next to her to walk through another practice problem. She used to tell me I was the only person who could explain things without making her feel stupid. You make everything seem so calm, she'd said once, after finally grasping confidence intervals. Like, I don't feel like my brain is going to explode when you explain stuff. Those were good times. Simple times. Maya would hug me when she finally understood a concept. Julia would order pizza as a reward for successful tutoring sessions, and we'd all watch Netflix together until Maya fell asleep on our couch, and we'd have to wake her up to drive her back to her dorm. She felt like the little sister I'd never had, and Julia loved having her around. It was this perfect little family dynamic that made me think maybe I was actually good at this whole relationship thing. Then Julia got pregnant 3 years ago, and everything changed. God, I still remember the day we found out. Julia came out of the bathroom holding that little plastic stick like it was made of pure gold, tears streaming down her face, and we both just stood there in our pajamas at 7 in the morning, holding each other and laughing and crying at the same time. We spent the whole weekend planning nursery colors and debating baby names and calling our parents to share the news. Maya was so excited she drove over that same day and spent hours on Pinterest showing us essential baby items and talking about how she was going to be the best aunt in the history of aunts. We made it to 12 weeks. 12 weeks of planning and dreaming and Julia downloading every pregnancy app known to mankind. 12 weeks of me reading books about fatherhood and secretly panicking about whether I'd be any good at raising a tiny human. 12 weeks of pure, terrifying, incredible happiness. And then it was over. Just like that. One routine appointment turned into the kind of devastating news that splits your life into before and after. The doctor was kind but clinical, explaining about fetal development issues, and these things happen more often than you'd think, and you can try again when you're ready. But all I heard was the sound of Julia crying and the sudden, horrible silence where our future used to be. Julia took it hard. Harder than I knew how to handle, if I'm being honest. She stopped eating regular meals, started sleeping 14 hours a day, and couldn't even walk past baby stores without having what I can only describe as panic attacks. I tried everything: therapy, support groups, weekend getaways, even adopting a dog to give her something to nurture. Nothing worked. She just drifted away from me, like she was floating in some ocean of grief that I couldn't reach. That's when Maya moved in. Just temporarily, she said. Just until Julia feels better. She'd graduated college by then and was supposed to be starting her adult life. But instead she showed up with 3 suitcases and a determination to take care of her big sister. And honestly, at first, I was grateful. Julia actually smiled when Maya was around. She started eating again, started showering regularly, started participating in conversations instead of just staring at the wall. But temporary turned into 6 months. Then 6 months turned into a year. Then Maya's car broke down, and suddenly I was driving her everywhere. Then her part-time job ended, and somehow her portion of the grocery bill became my responsibility. Then she decided she needed better internet for freelance work, and the upgrade came out of my pocket. Little by little, Maya went from grateful house guest to permanent resident to the person who made all the household decisions while I paid for them. She took over the living room, rearranged the furniture, decided what we watched on TV, controlled the thermostat, and somehow became the center of our household universe. And Julia just let her. Maybe because having Maya there meant she didn't have to deal with the empty space where our baby was supposed to be. Maybe because taking care of Maya gave her a purpose when everything else felt pointless. Or maybe because it was easier to let Maya run everything than to figure out how to be married to me again. I got up and walked to the motel window, pushing aside the heavy curtain to look out at the parking lot. The sun was just starting to come up, painting the desert sky that same incredible orange pink that had seemed so beautiful yesterday. Now it just looked like the end of something. The end of being the guy who paid for everything and got treated like an annoying piece of furniture. The end of being married to someone who could watch me get humiliated and not say a word. The end of being Maya's personal bank account. By 8 a.m., I was sitting in the motel parking lot in my car, engine running, staring at my phone like it was going to spontaneously develop the ability to solve all my problems. The smart thing would have been to call Julia, grovel a little, maybe apologize for overreacting, and slink back home with my tail between my legs. That's what the old me would have done. The me who'd spent the last few years avoiding conflict like it was a communicable disease. But the old me hadn't spent the night in a budget motel after being told he nauseated an unborn baby. The old me hadn't just canceled $2,500 worth of monthly payments that were keeping 2 grown women comfortable while they treated him like an irritating houseplant. The new me was apparently making different choices, starting with the decision to call someone who might actually give a damn that I was having the worst week of my adult life. Devin Martinez had been my college roommate for 3 years, which meant he'd seen me at my absolute worst. Including but not limited to the great food poisoning incident of 2015, my brief and embarrassing attempt at growing a goatee, and that time I got so drunk I tried to convince everyone that cereal was technically soup. If anyone could handle the current state of my imploded marriage, it was Devin. Dude, what's up? His voice was cheerful and alert despite the early hour, which made sense since Devin had always been one of those annoyingly functional morning people. You sound like you're calling from inside a tornado. More like the aftermath of one, I said, leaning back in the driver's seat and watching a roadrunner dart across the parking lot like it was late for an important appointment. Remember how you and Sasha always said I could crash at your place if I needed to? There was a pause, and I could practically hear Devin's brain switching gears from casual morning conversation to concerned friend mode. Yeah, of course. What happened? Are you and Julia okay? That's a loaded question with a complicated answer. The short version is that Maya told me I'm irritating and nauseate her baby. Julia said nothing while I got verbally demolished at dinner last night. And I'm currently sitting in a motel parking lot having what I can only describe as a midlife crisis at 32. Jesus Christ, man. Maya said, what now? I gave him the full rundown. The dinner, the silence, the walkout, the night of financial revenge, the complete radio silence from my supposed life partner. Devin listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I'd always appreciated about him. The guy knew when to joke around and when to just shut up and let someone unload their emotional baggage. Okay, first of all, Maya sounds like she's lost her damn mind, he said when I finished. Second, Julia not saying anything is some next-level bullshit. And third, you need to get out of that motel right now and come over here. Sasha's making pancakes, and we have a guest room that doesn't smell like industrial disinfectant and broken dreams. I don't want to impose. Dude, stop. You're not imposing. You're family. Get your ass over here before Sasha finds out you're sitting in a parking lot feeling sorry for yourself. She'll drive over there and drag you back herself, and you know she will. He wasn't wrong. Sasha Martinez was about 5'3" and looked like she couldn't hurt a fly, but she had the protective instincts of a mama bear and zero tolerance for people she cared about suffering in silence. I'd seen her verbally destroy a waiter who was rude to Devin, and it was both terrifying and impressive. 45 minutes later, I was pulling into the driveway of their townhouse in Central Phoenix, a neat little place with actual grass in the front yard and flower boxes that suggested two people who had their shit together. Devin was waiting on the front porch with a cup of coffee, wearing basketball shorts and an old ASU t-shirt that had seen better days. He looked exactly the same as he had in college. Same easy grin, same perfectly messy hair, same ability to make you feel like everything was going to be okay, even when your life was currently resembling a dumpster fire. You look like hell, he said cheerfully, which was exactly the kind of honest greeting I needed. No fake sympathy, no walking on eggshells, just Devin being Devin. Thanks. That's exactly what every guy wants to hear when his marriage explodes, I replied, grabbing my duffel bag from the back seat. Really boosting my confidence here. That's what I'm here for, brutal honesty and emotional support. Sometimes at the same time. Sasha appeared in the doorway before we'd even made it up the front steps, and I swear she took one look at me and immediately went into full caretaker mode. She was wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, and she had that expression that suggested she was already mentally planning my recovery process. Oh, honey, she said, pulling me into a hug that somehow managed to be exactly what I needed without being overwhelming. Devin told me what happened. I'm so sorry. That's absolutely awful. It's okay. No, it's not okay, she interrupted, steering me toward the kitchen with the kind of gentle but firm guidance that suggested resistance was futile. None of that is okay. What Maya said was cruel and completely inappropriate, and Julia should have shut that down immediately. You have every right to be upset. The kitchen smelled like vanilla and butter, with a stack of pancakes on the counter that looked like they belonged in a food magazine. Sasha handed me a plate without asking if I was hungry. Which was good, because I hadn't realized I was starving until I smelled actual home-cooked food. When was the last time someone had just made me breakfast? Without complaints about the grocery bill or demands about organic ingredients or passive-aggressive comments about my eating habits? You look like you haven't slept in days, Sasha continued, setting down a cup of coffee that was exactly the right color and temperature. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't from a vending machine? Yesterday at dinner, I guess. Right before everything went to hell. That's what I thought. She loaded my plate with pancakes and actual bacon. The good kind, not the turkey substitute Maya insisted was healthier for everyone. Eat. Then we'll figure out what comes next. I took a bite and nearly groaned with relief. Real food, made by someone who wasn't keeping a running tally of how much it cost or how it might affect an unborn baby's delicate sensibilities. Food made by someone who wanted to take care of me instead of just tolerating my existence while I paid for everything. This is incredible, I said around a mouthful of pancake. I forgot what it was like to eat something without hearing a lecture about prenatal nutrition or grocery budgets. Devin sat down across from me with his own plate, shaking his head. Man, how long has it been since you felt like a human being instead of a walking credit card? I thought about it, really thought about it. Honestly, I have no idea. Months, maybe longer. Well, that change is starting now, Sasha said firmly, sitting down with her coffee. You're staying here as long as you need to, and we're going to remind you that you're actually a pretty great guy who deserves to be treated with basic respect. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt like someone actually saw me. Not my bank account, not my usefulness as a problem solver or bill payer, but me. The guy who used to tutor scared college kids and make his friends laugh and dream about being a father someday. Maybe I'd forgotten that guy existed. But sitting in Devin and Sasha's kitchen, eating pancakes made with actual care, I started to remember what it felt like to be valued for something other than my ability to keep the lights on. I'd been at Devin and Sasha's place for exactly 36 hours when my phone started having what could only be described as a complete nervous breakdown. I was sitting in their guest room, which, by the way, had actual matching furniture and didn't smell like someone had died in it, catching up on some freelance work when my phone started buzzing like an angry wasp trapped in a jar. The first call came in at 2:47 p.m. on Thursday. Julia's contact photo lit up the screen. A picture from our honeymoon in San Diego where she was laughing at something I'd said, looking genuinely happy to be with me. That photo felt like it was from a different century now, back when she actually enjoyed my company instead of tolerating it while I funded her lifestyle. I let it go to voicemail. Then I let the second one go. And the third. By the time I'd ignored the 15th call in 20 minutes, even Devin was starting to look concerned. Dude, maybe you should just answer it, he said, poking his head into the guest room. She's either really worried about you, or the house is literally on fire. If the house was on fire, she would have called 911, not me. I replied, watching my phone light up with call number 16. This is something else. I was right. When I finally checked my voicemail around dinner time, I discovered exactly what was causing Julia's sudden desperate need to reconnect with her irritating husband. And let me tell you, it wasn't concern for my well-being. Why isn't the power working? The first voicemail was pure panic, no greeting, no hey, are you okay? Just straight to the crisis. I tried flipping the breakers and nothing happened. Maya can't charge her pregnancy monitor thing, and she's freaking out. Call me back. The second message was even better. Seriously, what did you do? The internet isn't working either, and Maya has a doctor's video appointment in an hour. She's having what she's calling pregnancy anxiety about being disconnected. Where are you? By the third message, Julia had clearly figured out that this wasn't a technical malfunction. The cable company said our service was disconnected for non-payment. But that's impossible because you always handle the bills. What's going on? Call me now. I sat there in Devin's kitchen, listening to message after message of escalating panic, and started laughing. Not the bitter, sarcastic kind of laughter, the genuinely amused kind. Because after 5 years of marriage, 36 hours was apparently Julia's breaking point for noticing I existed. Not when I disappeared after being publicly humiliated, not when I didn't come home that night, but when the Wi-Fi stopped working. Listen to this, I said to Devin and Sasha, putting the phone on speaker for message number 7. Maya can't even microwave her organic pregnancy meals because apparently the microwave needs the internet to work properly. Who the hell designs a microwave that needs Wi-Fi? She's crying and saying the baby is going to be malnourished because she can't heat up her quinoa bowls. I know you're mad about something, but this is affecting an innocent baby. Call me back immediately. Sasha nearly choked on her wine. Did she just blame you for prenatal malnutrition because the internet is down? Oh, it gets better, I said, scrolling to message 12. Julia, I swear to God, if you don't call me back in the next hour, I'm going to lose my mind. Maya found out that Netflix isn't working and she's having what she's calling a prenatal entertainment crisis. She says watching her shows is essential for keeping her stress levels down for the baby's health. The house is like a war zone right now. Devin was openly cracking up at this point. A prenatal entertainment crisis? Is that a real medical condition now? According to Dr. Maya, apparently everything is a medical emergency when it inconveniences her. I replied, feeling lighter than I had in months. Wait until you hear message 18. Where are you? Julia's voice was so loud and shrill that Sasha actually winced. Maya discovered that her car insurance lapsed, and now she can't drive to her prenatal massage appointment. She's hyperventilating and saying you're deliberately sabotaging her pregnancy wellness routine. She wants to know if you realize you're committing emotional violence against an unborn child. I told her that was ridiculous, but seriously, where the hell are you and why is everything falling apart? Emotional violence against an unborn child, I repeated slowly. Because I'm not paying for her massage appointments anymore. This is better than cable TV, Devin said, wiping tears from his eyes. Please tell me there are more. Oh, there were more. 98 missed calls and 23 voicemails, to be exact. A symphony of panic, entitlement, and the gradual realization that their comfortable little world was entirely dependent on a man they'd told was nauseating. Message 21 was Julia starting to grasp the scope of the situation. I just checked our accounts, and did you cancel everything? The streaming services, the grocery delivery, even the premium cable package? Maya says this is financial abuse, and she's threatening to call her lawyer. I don't understand what's happening. You've never done anything like this before. That was the thing that really got me, the genuine confusion in her voice. Like she honestly couldn't connect the dots between treating someone like garbage and that person deciding to stop funding your lifestyle. Like the concept of actions having consequences was completely foreign to her. Message 25 showed Maya had taken over phone duty. Listen, you pathetic little man, I don't know what kind of temper tantrum you think you're having, but you're affecting MY pregnancy and MY baby's health. Do you want to be responsible for developmental issues because I'm too stressed to eat properly? Because that's what's happening. I can't even order my prenatal vitamins online because you canceled the internet like some kind of vindictive child. I had to pause the playback because I was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe. She's calling me vindictive for not paying her bills after she told me I nauseate her baby. The audacity is honestly impressive, Sasha said, shaking her head. It takes real skill to be that self-centered. The messages continued in the same vein, a fascinating psychological study in entitlement meeting reality. There were threats, guilt trips, attempts at manipulation, and even a few messages where Julia tried to sound sweet and reasonable, like maybe if she used her nice voice, I'd come running back to fix everything. But not once, not in a single message out of 23, did either of them ask if I was okay. Not once did Julia say she was sorry for what happened at dinner. Not once did Maya acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, telling someone they're nauseating might have consequences. It was all about them, their problems, their needs, their crisis. I was just the missing puzzle piece that made their lives work, not a human being with feelings who deserved basic respect. Around message 19, Julia had apparently figured out where I might be. I called Devin and Sasha's house, but no one answered. If you're there, I want you to know that hiding out with your friends instead of dealing with your responsibilities is incredibly immature. Maya is 8 months pregnant and shouldn't have to deal with this kind of stress. The irony was beautiful. I was immature for not wanting to subsidize the lifestyle of people who thought I was irritating, but Maya was perfectly mature for having a meltdown because Netflix wasn't working. Finally, around dinner time on Thursday, I decided to respond. Not with a phone call. Hell no, I wasn't ready for that level of drama yet. Just a simple text message that would let them know I was alive and set the record straight about exactly what was happening. I typed it out, read it twice, and hit send. You said you wanted to live without me, so I'm giving you that experience. Good luck figuring out how to adult without someone else paying for everything. The response was immediate. My phone started buzzing again within 30 seconds, but this time I just turned it off and handed it to Devin. Hold this for me, I said. I think I'm going to enjoy the peace and quiet for a while. For the first time in years, the silence felt like freedom instead of neglect. I should have known that my perfectly crafted text message wouldn't be the end of it. Maya wasn't exactly the type to accept defeat gracefully, or at all, really. The woman had turned entitlement into an art form over the past few years, and apparently my little financial rebellion was about to inspire her greatest masterpiece yet. The call came at 9:47 p.m. on Friday night, just as Devin, Sasha, and I were settling in to watch some mindless action movie that involved a lot of explosions and exactly zero complicated relationship drama. I'd been phone-free for almost 24 hours, and it had been glorious. No notifications, no urgent crises, no demands for my immediate attention to solve problems I didn't create. Just pizza, beer, and the kind of easy friendship that reminded me what normal human interaction was supposed to feel like. When my phone started buzzing on the coffee table, We all looked at it like it was a rattlesnake that had somehow slithered into the living room. Julia again? Devin asked, pausing the movie mid-explosion. I glanced at the screen and felt my stomach drop. Nope, it's Julia's phone, but I'm betting it's not Julia calling. Sasha looked confused. What do you mean? Maya's probably hijacked Julia's phone because I blocked her number yesterday, I explained, remembering the satisfaction I'd felt hitting that block button. She's about as subtle as a brick through a window when she wants something. You could just let it go to voicemail, Sasha suggested hopefully. But something in me was curious. After 36 hours of radio silence followed by financial panic, what fresh hell was Maya planning to unleash? Besides, I was feeling pretty good about my new boundaries, and I had backup in the form of 2 friends who thought the whole situation was as ridiculous as I did. How bad could one phone call be? Famous last words, right? I answered on the 4th ring. Hello. You selfish jerk. The words exploded out of the phone's speaker with the force of a volcanic eruption. Maya didn't bother with pleasantries like hello or how are you. She went straight for the nuclear option. You absolute piece of garbage. Do you have any idea what you've done? I held the phone away from my ear as her voice reached decibel levels that probably violated noise ordinances. Devin and Sasha were both staring at the phone like it had started speaking in tongues. Well, hello to you too, Maya, I said when she paused to take a breath. I'm doing great, thanks for asking. How are you this lovely evening? Don't you dare get smart with me, she shrieked. We're sitting in the dark like we're living in some third world country. Do you know how dangerous that is for a pregnant woman? I could trip and fall and hurt the baby. I could go into premature labor from the stress. Have you tried using a flashlight? I suggested helpfully. I hear they make battery-powered ones now. Revolutionary technology. Sasha had to cover her mouth to keep from laughing out loud. Devin was openly grinning, giving me a thumbs up like I was winning some kind of cosmic debate championship. This isn't funny. Maya's voice went up another octave, reaching frequencies that probably interfered with air traffic control. I can't even microwave my dinner. Do you know what that means for my prenatal nutrition? I'm supposed to be eating specific heated meals to support the baby's development, and now I can't even warm up a bowl of soup. You know, people managed to have healthy babies for thousands of years before microwaves were invented, I pointed out. Crazy, I know. Maybe try this ancient technique called using the stove. The stove is electric, you moron. No power means no stove. I'm basically being forced to eat cold food like some kind of cave person, and it's all because you're having a temper tantrum like a 5-year-old. I had to admire her logic. Somehow, me refusing to pay her bills had transformed into me forcing her to live like a caveman. The mental gymnastics required for that level of victim mentality were honestly impressive. Here's a wild idea, I said, settling back into the couch and enjoying this more than I probably should have. Maybe you could pay your own electric bill. I know it's a radical concept, but some people actually pay for their own utilities. With what money? She screamed. I'm 8 months pregnant. I can't work. Julia's hours got cut at the salon because people aren't getting their hair done as much anymore. We don't have the kind of money you make with your fancy consulting job. Sounds like a personal problem, I replied cheerfully. Maybe you should have thought about that before telling me I nauseate your baby. There was a moment of stunned silence, and I could practically hear the gears grinding in Maya's head as she processed the fact that I wasn't immediately apologizing and offering to fix everything. You can't be serious, she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You're going to punish an innocent baby because your feelings got hurt? What kind of monster are you? The kind who doesn't pay bills for people who think he's disgusting, apparently, I said. Weird how that works. This is insane. And we were back to full volume shrieking. You can't just cut off utilities to a house with a pregnant woman. That's got to be illegal. It's probably child endangerment or something. First of all, the utilities were in my name because I was paying for them, I explained patiently. Second, you're not a child. You're a grown woman who apparently needs to learn how adults handle their responsibilities. And third, the baby isn't born yet, so I'm pretty sure child endangerment laws don't apply to your Netflix addiction. Devin was now openly laughing, and Sasha was recording the conversation on her phone, probably for future entertainment purposes. Netflix isn't the point, Maya yelled. The point is that I need internet for my prenatal yoga classes, and my meditation apps, and my pregnancy tracking software. My doctor said keeping stress levels low is crucial for the baby's development, and being cut off from all my wellness resources is causing me massive anxiety. You know what might help with your stress levels? I suggested. Not calling people names. Revolutionary concept, I know. I never called you names. Really? Because I distinctly remember you telling me I was irritating and nauseated your baby. At dinner. In front of everyone. While I was literally paying for the food you were eating. Another pause. This time I could hear muffled conversation in the background. Probably Julia trying to coach her on what to say next. That was just pregnancy hormones talking, Maya said, her voice suddenly taking on a wheedling, manipulative tone that I recognized from every time she'd wanted something over the past few years. You know I didn't mean it. Pregnant women say crazy things sometimes. You can't hold that against me. Actually, I can, I said. Pregnancy doesn't give you a free pass to be cruel to people, especially people who've been supporting you financially for 2 years. Supporting me? Her voice shot back up to jet engine levels. You make it sound like I'm some kind of charity case. I'm family. Julia's sister. That's what family does. They help each other. Funny how that help only seems to flow in one direction, I observed. When's the last time you helped me with anything? When's the last time you even said thank you for anything I've done? Silence. Complete, total silence. That's what I thought. I continued. You want to be treated like family? Start acting like family. Which means treating people with basic respect instead of telling them they're nauseating. You know what? Maya's voice was now pure venom. Fine. You want to abandon a pregnant woman and make her suffer because your little ego got bruised? Go ahead. But when something happens to this baby because I'm too stressed and malnourished to carry it properly, that's on you. You'll have to live with knowing you chose your hurt feelings over an innocent child's health. And there it was, the manipulation masterpiece I'd been waiting for. Somehow, me not paying her bills was going to cause her baby to be born unhealthy. The logic was so twisted it could have been used as a pretzel recipe. Maya, I said, and for the first time, my voice was completely serious. You said I nauseate your baby. Consider this a cleanse. I hung up and immediately blocked Julia's number 2. The living room was dead quiet for about 3 seconds. Then Devin started slow clapping. Dude, he said, grinning like I'd just won an Olympic gold medal. That was the most savage thing I've ever heard you say. Consider this a cleanse? That's going down in history. Sasha was replaying the recording, shaking her head in amazement. I can't believe she actually tried to blame you for her baby's future health problems. That's some next-level manipulation right there. I leaned back into the couch, feeling like I'd just bench-pressed a small car. You know what the craziest part is? She still hasn't apologized. Not once. It's all about how I'm the villain for not wanting to fund the lifestyle of someone who thinks I'm repulsive. Well, Devin said, unpausing the movie. At least now you know exactly where you stand. And where you don't have to stand anymore. As explosions resumed on the TV screen, I realized something important. For the first time in years, I felt like I was worth defending. Even if I had to be the one doing the defending. 2 days after the Maya phone call from hell, I was sitting in Devin's living room working on a freelance project when the doorbell rang. It was one of those lazy Saturday afternoons where time moves like honey, and I'd actually been enjoying the simple pleasure of getting work done without anyone demanding I fix their internet or explain why the cable wasn't working. Peace and quiet had become my new favorite luxury. Sasha answered the door, and I heard her voice shift into that carefully polite tone she used when she was trying not to tell someone exactly what she thought of them. Oh, hi, Julia. My stomach dropped like I'd just gone over the first hill of a roller coaster. Julia, here, at Devin's house. Looking for me. Is he here? Julia's voice was softer than I'd heard it in months, almost hesitant. I need to talk to him. I closed my laptop and took a deep breath. Part of me wanted to hide in the guest room and pretend I wasn't home, but that felt too much like the old me, the guy who avoided confrontation at all costs. The new me was apparently willing to have uncomfortable conversations, especially on my own terms with backup nearby. It's okay, Sash, I called out. Let her in. Julia appeared in the living room doorway looking like a completely different person than the woman who'd smirked while her sister verbally destroyed me 5 days ago. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail instead of the perfectly styled waves she usually wore. No makeup, which was practically unheard of for Julia. She wouldn't take out the trash without at least mascara and lip gloss. She was wearing jeans and an old ASU sweatshirt that I recognized from our college days, back when things were simpler and we actually liked each other. She looked tired, really tired, like she hadn't been sleeping any better than I had been. "Can we talk?" she asked, hovering near the couch like she wasn't sure if she was welcome to sit down. Devin materialized from the kitchen with impeccable timing. "I'm gonna go find something to do in the garage," he said, giving me a supportive nod before disappearing. Sasha followed him, but not before shooting Julia a look that could have melted steel. I gestured to the chair across from me. "Sure, talk." Julia perched on the edge of the chair like she might need to make a quick escape. For a minute, we just looked at each other. Two people who used to share everything and now felt like strangers. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Which part?" I asked. "The part where your sister told me I nauseate her baby, or the part where you smiled and said nothing while she did it?" Julia flinched like I'd slapped her. "I didn't smile." "You did, Julia. You sipped your wine and smiled while Maya humiliated me in front of your parents." I kept my voice level, but I could feel years of stored-up frustration bubbling underneath. "You watched someone treat me like garbage, and you didn't say a word." "She was just emotional," Julia said, falling back on the same excuse Maya had tried. "She's 8 months pregnant. Her hormones are all over the place." "And I was paying for everything," I interrupted. "The roof over her head, the food in her fridge, the Wi-Fi for her work-from-home job that seems to involve a lot of online shopping and Netflix. Do you have any idea how much money I've spent keeping Maya comfortable over the past 2 years?" Julia's face went pale. "That's not. I mean, you never complained. Because I thought we were family." The words came out louder than I'd intended, and I saw Julia shrink back into the chair. "I thought I was helping my wife's sister get back on her feet. I didn't realize I was funding a lifestyle for someone who thinks I'm disgusting." "She doesn't think you're disgusting," Julia said weakly. "Really? Because you're irritating and you nauseate my baby sounds pretty clear to me. And you know what the really messed up part is? You didn't defend me. Your own husband. You sat there and let her say that stuff like I deserved it." Julia's eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't feeling particularly sympathetic. Tears were easy. Words were harder. Actions were even harder than that. "I should have said something," she admitted. "I know I should have. But Maya's been so stressed about the baby, and she's been having these mood swings." "Stop making excuses for her," I said firmly. "And stop making excuses for yourself. You had a choice in that moment, and you chose to stay quiet. That tells me everything I need to know about where I rank in your list of priorities." Julia looked down at her hands, and I could see her wedding ring catching the light. The same ring I'd saved for months to buy, back when I thought we were building something together instead of me just funding her life. "I didn't call until the lights went out," she said quietly. "What? You said I didn't call until the lights went out." "You're right. I didn't even check if you were okay. I assumed you'd come back when you cooled off. Like you always do." At least she was being honest. Finally, "The thing is, Julia, I'm not the same guy who always comes back anymore. That guy got tired of being treated like he was disposable." She looked up at me then, and for the first time in months, I saw something in her eyes that looked like the woman I'd married. "I miss you," she said simply. "You miss my paycheck," I corrected. "There's a difference." Julia stood up abruptly, like I'd hit too close to home. "That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you asked about my day? When's the last time we had a conversation that wasn't about what Maya needed, or what bills needed to be paid, or what crisis needed to be solved?" I stood up too, feeling steadier than I had in years. "When's the last time you acted like you actually wanted to be married to me instead of just financially supported by me?" She didn't answer. Couldn't answer, probably, because we both knew what the truth was. Julia walked toward the door, then turned back one more time. "So that's it. 5 years of marriage, and you're just done?" "I'm done being your ATM," I said. "If you want to work on being married to each other, that's a different conversation. But it starts with you deciding whether you want a husband or just a bank account with legs." She left without saying another word. That week, I found my own place, a 1-bedroom apartment in a quiet complex about 15 minutes from Devin's house. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. The rent was reasonable. The neighbors weren't screaming about prenatal entertainment crises, and best of all, I didn't have to share the remote with anyone who thought reality TV was high culture. Moving in felt like coming back to life. I set up my Wi-Fi without anyone complaining about the speed or demanding premium packages for their essential streaming needs. I arranged the furniture exactly how I wanted it. Couch facing the TV, not angled towards some pregnancy throne. I even put my coffee maker on the counter instead of hiding it in a cabinet because someone thought it cluttered the aesthetic. The silence was incredible. No constant chatter about baby apps and prenatal vitamins. No demands to fix things that weren't broken. No one monitoring my grocery choices or complaining that I bought the wrong brand of organic whatever. Just me, my space, and actual peace. I took on more freelance consulting work since I wasn't hemorrhaging $2,500 monthly on other people's comfort. Turns out, when you're not stressed about funding someone else's lifestyle, you sleep better, work better, think clearer. Who knew? The best part? I started painting again. Found my old easel in storage and set it up by the living room window. I hadn't touched a brush since college, back when I actually had time for things I enjoyed instead of constantly solving other people's problems. Julia sent emails. Long ones, full of explanations and justifications and carefully worded non-apologies. Maya texted from new numbers she must have borrowed, alternating between guilt trips and threats about abandoning family. I deleted them all without reading past the first line. Devin and Sasha helped me rebuild my life, piece by piece. Real friends who actually gave a damn about my happiness instead of my bank account balance. They reminded me that I used to be interesting, funny, creative, all the things I'd forgotten while playing the role of walking wallet. I didn't realize how much of myself I'd sacrificed just to keep the peace. Turns out, there's no peace in constantly enabling people who don't respect you. 3 weeks into my new life as a functional human being, Sasha texted me with a screenshot that made me nearly choke on my morning coffee. I was sitting at my kitchen table, in my apartment, drinking coffee I'd bought with money that wasn't being siphoned off to fund someone else's organic lifestyle. When my phone buzzed with what could only be described as the digital equivalent of Christmas morning. Dude. The text read, followed by a screenshot of a Facebook post. You need to see this. Julia's having a moving sale this weekend. The caption is something else. I opened the image and had to read it 3 times before the full irony hit me. There, posted on Julia's Facebook page for all her friends and family to see, was a photo of our living room furniture with the caption, moving sale this Saturday. Everything must go. Downsizing to a smaller place and need to get rid of lots of great furniture and household items. Serious inquiries only, cash prefer. 2 hearts. Our living room. The one I'd been paying rent on for 3 years. The furniture I'd helped pick out. The coffee table I'd assembled with my own hands while Maya complained that the construction noise was disrupting her afternoon nap. All of it being sold off like the remnants of someone else's life. Which, I guess it kind of was now. I called Sasha immediately, because this level of cosmic justice demanded to be shared with someone who would appreciate the full scope of the situation. Please tell me you saw the Facebook post, I said as soon as she answered. Oh, I saw it all right, Sasha replied, and I could hear the grin in her voice. I also saw some of the comments. Julia's college roommate asked what happened, and Julia's response was, let's call it creative with the truth. What did she say? That you guys decided to pursue different life paths, and she's focusing on family right now. No mention of Maya calling you nauseating, no mention of the financial situation, just some vague bullshit about growing apart. I had to admire Julia's ability to spin a narrative. Getting publicly humiliated by your sister-in-law and having your husband walk out after canceling all the bills had somehow been transformed into a mutual decision to pursue different life paths. It was like watching a master class in creative fiction writing. But here's the really interesting part, Sasha continued. I did a little detective work. You know, the kind that involves scrolling through public real estate listings and maybe asking a few strategic questions to mutual friends. Oh God, what did you find? They're moving to a 2-bedroom rental in Awatuki. Rent's about $1,200 a month, which is roughly half of what you were paying for the house. And get this, Maya's boyfriend apparently decided to step up and be a responsible adult. Word is he's moving in with them and helping with expenses. I sat there processing this information while staring out my kitchen window at the courtyard pool, where a couple of kids were having a very serious conversation about pool noodle physics. Maya's boyfriend, the guy she'd been dating on and off for 2 years, but who was supposedly not ready for commitment, had suddenly discovered his inner provider just in time to help with the rent on a smaller place. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. The guy who wasn't ready to commit to Maya when I was paying for everything is now ready to move in and help support her and the baby? Funny how that works, right? Sasha's voice was dripping with satisfaction. It's almost like having a financial safety net makes it easier to avoid adult responsibilities. The more I thought about it, the more the whole situation started to make sense. Maya hadn't been looking for a partner. She'd been looking for a provider. And as long as I was filling that role, her boyfriend could play the fun, commitment-free guy who showed up for the good times without any of the responsibility. But the moment I pulled my financial support, suddenly cohabitation and shared expenses didn't seem so scary anymore. It was like watching someone remove the training wheels from a bicycle. Turns out, people are capable of amazing things when they don't have another option. There's more, Sasha said, clearly enjoying her role as bearer of cosmic justice updates. Remember how Maya claimed she couldn't work because of her pregnancy? Well, apparently she started doing online customer service for some beauty company. Work from home, flexible hours, the kind of job she could have been doing all along if she hadn't been so comfortable letting you handle all the bills. I started laughing, not the bitter kind, but genuine amusement at the beautiful irony of it all. For 2 years, I'd been told that Maya couldn't possibly contribute financially because pregnancy was too demanding, work was too stressful, and her delicate condition required constant rest and specialized nutrition. But the moment her comfortable lifestyle disappeared, she'd miraculously discovered the ability to earn income from home. It's almost like necessity is the mother of invention, I said. Who could have predicted that? Right? It's shocking how quickly someone can become self-sufficient when they're not being subsidized by someone else. I walked over to my easel, where I'd been working on a painting of the desert mountains at sunrise. It was coming along nicely, something I never would have had time for when my evenings were spent mediating disputes about optimal room temperature and organic grocery budgets. You know what the best part is? I said, adding a touch of orange to the mountain peaks. I'm not even angry about it anymore. I'm just impressed by the efficiency of it all. What do you mean? Think about it. The moment I stopped enabling their lifestyle, everything worked itself out. Maya found a job, her boyfriend stepped up, Julia downsized to something she could actually afford, and I discovered what it feels like to live without constant financial stress and emotional manipulation. Everybody won. Except for the part where they lost their personal ATM, Sasha pointed out, which turned out to be exactly what they needed to become functional adults. I stepped back from the painting, admiring the way the light was hitting the mountains. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is stop rescuing them from the consequences of their choices. That evening, Devin came over with pizza and beer, a Tuesday night tradition we'd started since I moved into my own place. He'd seen the Facebook post too, and had his own theories about the rapid transformation of Maya from helpless pregnant princess to working woman. It's like that saying about how someone can't walk as long as you're carrying them, he said, settling into my comfortable chair with a slice of pepperoni. You spent 2 years carrying Maya financially, and she had no incentive to develop her own legs. And Julia had no incentive to set boundaries with her sister as long as someone else was paying for Maya's comfort, I added. I was basically enabling both of them to avoid dealing with reality. So what happens now? Devin asked. Julia's been pretty quiet since the moving sale announcement. No more emails about reconciliation and utility restoration. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my inbox. He was right. The stream of carefully worded messages about missing me and hoping we could work things out had stopped completely. The last email had been over a week ago, right around the time the moving sale was probably being planned. Radio silence, I confirmed, which is probably the most honest communication I've gotten from her in months. We sat there eating pizza and watching some documentary about nature photographers, and I realized something important. I wasn't waiting for my phone to ring anymore. For the first time in years, I wasn't on edge, wondering what crisis would need my immediate attention and financial intervention. I wasn't calculating how much each month was costing me or feeling guilty about money I spent on myself. I was just living, like a normal person who got to keep his own paycheck and make his own decisions about how to spend his time and money. Around 9:30, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a split second, I wondered if it was Maya, trying yet another new approach to financial manipulation. But when I opened it, I discovered something much better. It was from my sister in Colorado, whom I'd barely talked to in the past year because every conversation had somehow become about Maya's needs or Julia's stress levels. "Hey stranger," the text read. "Heard through the family grapevine that you're going through some changes. Just wanted you to know I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. You deserve better than what you were getting. Love you, little brother." I stared at the message for a long moment, feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. The knowledge that someone in my family actually saw me as a person worth defending instead of a resource to be managed. "Good news?" Devin asked, noticing my expression. "Yeah," I said, saving my sister's number under a new contact. "Really good news." For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I was moving towards something instead of just away from something. And that felt like the beginning of everything. A month later, I found a handwritten letter slipped under my apartment door. Julia's familiar script spelled out my name on expensive stationery, the kind she used for special occasions. Inside, 3 pages of carefully crafted apology. She was sorry. Maya had apologized too. Pregnancy stress, apparently. They'd learned valuable lessons about independence. Maya had her baby, got engaged, moved out. Julia missed me. Missed us. Could we try again? I read it twice, then set it down and stared at my latest painting. A desert landscape capturing wide-open freedom. The letter was well-written, hitting all the right emotional notes. A few months ago, it might have worked. But sitting there in my quiet apartment, I realized something important. I didn't want to rebuild what we'd had. What we'd had was me funding everyone else's comfort while being treated like an irritating necessity. I pulled out paper and wrote my response. "Julia, thank you for the apology. I can tell you put thought into it. You learned you can be independent. I learned I deserve someone who sees me as more than a financial solution. I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful. The last month showed me what I was missing. Peace, respect, the ability to be myself without managing everyone else's comfort. I hope Maya's doing well with the baby. I hope your independence brings happiness. I genuinely mean that. But I won't be coming home. This isn't punishment. It's choosing a life where I matter as much as the bills I pay. I wish you the best." I folded it, sealed it in an envelope. Tomorrow I'd mail it, ending our story. That evening, sitting on my balcony watching the sunset, my phone buzzed. "Devin, Sasha's making enchiladas tomorrow. You in?" I smiled and typed back. "I'm doing great. Yes to enchiladas." For the first time in years, I meant it completely.